Hi, welcome to ToutSuite Social Club. My name is Tanya Bro. I am the founder and blogger-in-chief for Napa Valley Vegan. Thanks for joining us today. If you've joined us online, what we'd really love is if you could use your webcam and go interactive with us. That way we can see you, everyone watching can see you, you can ask questions, make comments, and really be a part of the show. So please do that. Tonight I'm going to be making a couple sauces. The first one is a cheesy sauce that is completely vegan, so it contains no cheese, no dairy, is absolutely delicious. And the second sauce is an avocado sauce. So if you're trying to stay away from the heavy creams and dairy and things like that, the avocados make a wonderful alternative for something like that. So I'm boiling the water now. As far as pasta, obviously you use whatever pasta you prefer. I'm a big fan of gluten-free, so I use the brown rice pasta quite often, but obviously anything that you love will work just fine. So the water is boiling, so we'll give that just a couple minutes, and I'm going to get started with the cheese sauce first. Okay, so the first thing we do for the cheese sauce is use about a 1/4 cup of cashews. They're super creamy. You can even soak them in advance, which makes them even more creamy and tasty. In this case, I didn't, but it certainly is an option. I like to basically grind those up first before I add any of the other ingredients. So let's do that real quick. Okay, a little bit more, pulse that. All right, perfect. And then the next thing that we'll want to do is add 2 cups of water. So one thing I love about this mac and cheese, or this cheese sauce, is I actually started using it as a nacho cheese dip. And so it's really awesome how you can utilize it in a couple different ways. If you end up putting a jar of pimentos in, it gets that kind of unnaturally orange color that nacho cheese has. So the pimentos work perfectly for that. And then I also use a vegan chorizo. It's called a soy rizo. So it has that really spicy flavor of a nacho cheese dip. So you can use it again for mac and cheese. You can use it for the cheese dip. It's really cool. You can use it in a lot of different ways. All right. The next ingredient we want to add is the nutritional yeast. For those of you who are not vegan or you're just vegan curious right now, nutritional yeast is a great source of B12. So it's great since we don't eat dirty vegetables anymore as a species. That's typically where that B12 comes from. It's a great supplement, and Red Star offers a wonderful nutritional yeast. Now, the great thing about it is it's a little on the salty side, and it certainly has a very cheesy flavor to it without having any dairy or animal product in it, which I love that about it. To thicken it, we want to use arrowroot or cornstarch. It's going to be just like gravy. It's going to have to thicken a little bit over the heat. And then we've got all of the different spices that really give it a nice cheesy flavor. We've got salt, onion powder, garlic powder, and cumin. And I like to put in just probably a tablespoon or so of lemon. So just give it a good squeeze. All right. And then we'll stir that all up. Okay, and then you'll just want to scrape down the sides. Make sure it gets nice and... All right, perfect. We'll combine that just a little bit more. All right, perfect. Let's get this burner going. Ah! There we go. All right, and it's on. Okay. So once you have this all combined, we're going to add this to the skillet. And you can use any pan. You can use a saucepan or a big pot like this. Whatever you have handy is fine, just as long as it'll hold at least 2 cups of water. Okay, and the biggest thing is once you get this on the heat, you want to keep stirring. So again, so it'll start to thicken. So DDA, would you like to be a part of the show? Yeah. I'm trying to get my water to boil, and it's just not really working. So I just want to be sure that I did everything okay with that. I thought at 700 degrees it would have been boiling like 10 minutes ago, so I just want to be sure I've... And you can move that burner over You got it. So we want it right over here. Thank you. What's that? All right. Thank you. All right, so let's bring this over so you can see the cheese sauce.
Moving it.
Yay! This is really, it just looks like water as far as the consistency. So again, there we go. It usually takes about 5 or 6 minutes of stirring to get it going, get it nice and thick. Okay, so I'm waiting for you folks to get on camera and ask me some questions, make some comments here. Otherwise, we have to sit and look at boiling water. That's no fun. One thing I can talk about a little bit is Artesa Wines. We're wine club members, and we moved out here 3 years ago and really had no idea that a lot of wine was fine with animal product. So that's obviously something, as we drank more wine and gained more knowledge, essentially, we found out that a lot of it does. So I reached out to Artesa about a week or so ago, and they were wonderful. They talked to both of their winemakers and actually sent me a list of their wines, and probably close to a dozen of them are actually vegan. So that means they may have been fined, but they didn't use any sort of animal product. So I get to enjoy this, which is nice.
I have a question.
Yeah, please, shout it out.
So, Tanya, what animal product would they use to fine a wine?
You know, it's interesting. Great question, because I know I was shocked. You just think it's grapes, right? Grapes and a little yeast. Yeah. But a lot of times at the end of the process,
they use eggs.
Yeah, it's ultimately up to the winemaker, depending on how they feel it is as a completed product or as a finished product. So a lot of times they'll use fish bladder, they'll use egg whites, and even some more things that are kind of disgusting. I've heard of dried blood. So it's a protein essentially, and once you put that protein in, other proteins are attracted to it, so it gets dead yeast cells, it gets the grape skins, kind of gets that all out of the wine, and also can affect the flavor. Okay, so now, thank you for asking that question. It's a wonderful question. So this is starting to bubble and boil. So once it does that, obviously it's going to start to thicken fairly quickly. So you want to keep stirring so that it doesn't burn or stick to the bottom. All right. My pasta is really not going to be done soon. That's okay. That's all right. You can put this in another pan and work on the second sauce, and then we'll have our pasta ready. Okay. And I like to get this fairly thick. So it really, I don't know, we've all had that mac and cheese that the cheese comes in that little tin foily type packet, and it's really bright orange and kind of who knows what's actually in the ingredient list, but it's delicious. So I like mine nice and thick also, like that. All right. And like I said earlier, at this stage, if we were going to do this more like a nacho cheese dip, we could put in some soy rizo, which is mostly made out of soy with a lot of spices, so it really tastes almost identical to what a chorizo tastes like. But again, it's free of any animal products, so you don't have to worry about cholesterol, saturated fat, that sort of thing. All right. Okay, I think that is probably plenty thick enough. Okay. And if I had the pasta done, I would pour it on the pasta, but since that is actually taking a little longer than I thought, we'll just set this aside and we will work on the next sauce. All right. All right, so the next sauce is our avocado sauce. Again, so it really is something wonderful that you can use instead of like an Alfredo sauce. You don't have to use the cream or butter or milk. And of course, avocados are delicious and they're full of wonderful fats. So that's a wonderful option to use this. So get all my fresh goods out here so you guys can see them. And the first thing we want to do is take 2 avocados and make sure they're really nice and ripe. All right. I have to say, I never used to eat avocado until I became a vegan, and now I eat this every single day. I put it on my salad. I absolutely love it. It's become one of my most favorite foods ever. So, yay, go vegan. All right, so we'll put this in here. And another wonderful thing, just so you saw how easy that cheese sauce is, this is so simple. So, like we were talking about earlier, I mean, obviously there are much more complex recipes that I make. Certainly 30 minutes would not be enough time to do that, but there are some wonderful simple ones that are so tasty, don't take long. You essentially need 2 burners and a food processor, and you've got an amazing meal. So it doesn't have to be scary or challenging to go vegan. Okay, audience, I need some questions here. Anything.
So Tanya, what's been the reaction of non-vegans eating your nacho cheese?
Their minds are blown, honestly. It's, we're in Napa, we live here in Napa, and we're finally meeting more vegans, but obviously moving here, we didn't know anyone that ate a vegan lifestyle. So primarily all of our friends and associates and people that we know are meat eaters, and we recently had a party. I had my nacho cheese dip out in a bunch of different options, and people were literally scraping the nacho cheese dip down to the very last bite. And when I first moved out here, I worked part-time at the mall, kind of the same thing. We'd have little potlucks, and everyone would bring kind of a dish to pass, and we'd have it in our break room, and everyone loved it. They just absolutely loved it. So you're not going to miss out on anything when it comes to it's almost boiling, yay! You won't miss out on a thing. So it's wonderful. People love it, like I said. Okay, so then we've got the avocado, and then the next step is a little bit of garlic. I moved it all. Where it is? Here it is. So I've got just like a clove and a half of garlic, just to give it a little bit of flavor. And I'm also going to put a little bit of lemon juice in here. So again, we'll cut one of these open. Another huge factor to, I think, a good meal is having everything as fresh as absolutely possible. So instead of having lemon out of a glass jar, I actually picked these out of my backyard. So they're so fresh and wonderful and just ready to be eaten, basically. Okay, and this would amount to, I don't know, probably a 1/4 cup or so worth of juice. So really just squeeze all the juice out of a full lemon. Perfect. Okay, and then I'm also going to add a little bit of olive oil. So I want to thank Marvin Martin for bringing his olive oil. This is local olive oil made actually in Soda Canyon, and he's been doing this for what, about 20 years?
About 15 years.
About 15 years.
The olives come from Soda Canyon, and they're milled at Il Fiorello Olive Oil Company in Fairfield.
Okay, beautiful. Yes, it's going to be absolutely delicious. I'm so excited to try this. So we're going to put about a 1/4 cup in. There we go. Another thing that I really never ate before I became vegan is olive oil. And I just wonder, how did I live my whole life not eating this wonderful product? I absolutely love it.
Well, they don't have olive trees in South Carolina.
No, they don't. And not in northern Michigan, which is where I grew up. Yeah. I guess there's one positive thing with stuff being shipped all over the world now, is we can get our hands on anything that we need. All right, so we've got the olive oil in there. And we're going to put just a little bit of salt and pepper, and that's really to taste. So you can add as much or as little as you want, depending on your philosophy on salt. Do a couple little pinches there. And I like salt. I'm not a huge fan of pepper, but I know it does give a lot of flavor, so we'll just do a little sprinkle of pepper on that as well. All right. And then what I'd love to do is, you can do a lot of different things. You can add scallions, really kind of whatever your favorite flavor is. I'm a huge fan of fresh basil, so I'm going to put about a 1/2 cup of basil in this as well. So I'm just going to kind of roll this up and chiffonade it a little bit and get it in there. We'll just grind that up. And again, you're going to want to just smooth down the sides and blend it all up nicely. Oh, this looks so good. I can't wait to try it. I wish you guys were here so you could try it with me. So I guess now I practice my comedic routine now. Well, pasta is boiling. I have to admit I'm not very funny, but one thing I can do while we're waiting for that.
Tanya,
Yeah.
What would you normally do at home if you were waiting for pasta to boil?
I would
Would
be,
you perhaps drink Chardonnay?
yes, drinking wine, certainly. I would do about a dozen different things. I'm totally obsessive compulsive, and I will just end up running all over the house. I would completely be off camera, so I can't really do that today. But I'd be hanging out with my dogs, cooking, watching TV through the kitchen, into the living room, that sort of thing. So it doesn't really work out for this particular show, but. All right, and then another thing too. Oh yeah,
I
please.
want to know, like, what was the reason why you became a vegan?
Why did I become a vegan? Oddly enough, I became a vegan. It's been 4 years vegan, 7 years total vegetarian. So this will be year 8 essentially. And oddly enough, of all places, I decided to do this once I moved to the South. I moved to North Carolina, Raleigh, not very animal friendly state. But I met an amazing group of people through Facebook, I think, actually. And they linked me up with Humane Society of the United States that was having a grassroots event in downtown Raleigh. And they finally had a lobbyist, an animal rights lobbyist for Raleigh, which is the capital of North Carolina. So I went to the event, met some really wonderful people, and just from there, I realized that there was a total conflict between what I was putting in my body and how I did actually feel about animals. And at that point, I became a vegetarian. I was ovo-lacto, and what that means essentially is I still ate egg and I still ate dairy, but I didn't eat any animals that had been slaughtered for meat or for food. My husband was still, he grew up on a ranch in Texas, so he still ate meat and still enjoyed meat. And probably after 6 or 7 months, I would make 2 meals for dinner because he worked really hard. There was no way I was going to tell him, yeah, too bad, make your own dinner when you get home. So he finally, after 6 or 7 months, said that he had not been supportive enough, that he wished he could do more, and how about if no more meat in the house, which was so supportive and so loving. We would dine out sometimes. He would maybe have chicken. But honestly, after 2 or 3 months, he got off meat as well. It was such a natural progression. That we did that for a couple years. We were still very addicted to cheese, which truly has quite an opiate effect. And the reason that it does is they want baby calves to shut up and eat and get fat. So it's a lot like breast milk in the sense that it really kind of quiets and soothes the child, whether that child has 4 legs or 2. And we really didn't work very hard on getting off cheese, but finally made the decision that it really was time to make that last step. And so the last 4 years and month have been completely animal product free. And it's been really the biggest and most profound life change of my life, I mean, truly. So because of that, I had to learn how to cook because I was an atrocious cook before that. I would basically burn bagels, and that was as far as I could take it. So the fact that I'm actually cooking on camera is shocking, but it's been a wonderful process, just a wonderful process. I think that could actually boil for just a couple more minutes. Again, it's still a little bit firm. I'm gonna leave that off. So anyway, thank you for the question, DDA. That's really a wonderful question. And I know a lot of people go vegan for different reasons. For many, it is health and weight loss. Because when you eat a plant-based diet, it's much easier to lose weight. I mean, you tend to not be as interested in processed foods, and it kind of cleans your palate. So broccoli tastes like something you've never had before. It's amazing. It tastes sweet and fabulous. But when you're eating meat and processed foods, you kind of lose that flavor, that ability to taste, I guess, would be more what I mean. So anyway, it's just been an amazing process. And a lot of times when people do it for weight loss, of course, there's so much information out there about factory farming, they may transition to veganism for animal rights, which is why I did it. So.
Well, that seems to me very radical, and that's great. But what about friends and people you were going out with, and now this is a totally different style of cooking. And were you supported by your friends as well, or some people didn't understand what was going on, and you don't see them anymore? Yeah,
that's also a great question. There are All in general, I think we're friends with people because we're drawn to each other for a reason. And what I've found is the deeper I get into veganism is that I become less able to go to barbecues, not because my friends aren't kind and don't invite us, but I truly see that steak. I see the cow. I actually see the cow. And I guess I've had enough experiences going to animal sanctuaries that I've made connections with pigs. I have a good friend called Peter the Piglet that I'm in love with. I'm madly in love with him. And so if I saw a plate of bacon, I would see my friend Peter. And you know, I've hugged and kissed enough chickens and cows that I don't see that meat as just something to sustain me. I see it as a living, breathing thing that no longer has its life. So the problem with, you know, our friends, they've been wonderful and very supportive. The problem is, I guess, me in the sense that it has to be really clean, you know what I mean? As far as, you know, and I don't want to see burgers frying on a grill and things like that. I struggle with that, I really do. But all in all, we have friends that we get together with. They're always make such a huge effort to provide food that I can eat and that I'm happy to eat. Obviously, drinking wine, that lightens everybody up. So that's a nice thing to get together with friends and drink wine. So yeah, I think all in all, everyone's been very supportive. Absolutely. I love the word radical. Like, I love to be a radical. That's so cool.
What is the most challenging things in cooking vegan?
The biggest challenge, probably the biggest challenge that I'm seeing now, which I know we should be happy about, but I really struggle with, is veganism is taking off enough now that I'm seeing so much vegan junk food in the grocery stores, including Whole Foods. I mean, products that are unhealthy. It doesn't matter that it doesn't have egg or dairy or animal product in it. It's just processed food hell. So I'm happy that places like Subway and Dunkin' Donuts and restaurants like that are adding some options, but it's straying away from the whole point of a plant-based diet, a whole foods plant-based diet. It's becoming just a vegan junk food diet. So I hate to see too many people getting wrapped up into, you know, eating the vegan junk food. So that being said, I buy it sometimes too. Hell yeah, it tastes good, you know, just like the processed food that contains animal product. It's tasty, it's full of fat and sugar and salt and all those things that our bodies crave and desire. So that's been a little bit of a struggle, is just not adding too many frozen packages to my grocery cart when I go to the grocery store. But other than that, really when I first became vegan, already the Whole Foods in Raleigh was making such an amazing transition. I didn't feel like I was lacking in anything. So plenty of the grocery stores now offer us everything that we need for a healthy vegan diet. So, you know, there's really no challenge. I mean, there's no challenge, really. It's a wonderful choice, and it's becoming easier every day, truly. So. Yeah.
Biodanism and vegan, you know, goes together. I mean, when you go to a shop, I mean, you're looking at small farmers. You believe in biodynamics, and you believe on what do you believe on, as far as, you know, growing your own vegetables?
I would love it if I had the time and the wherewithal and the space to grow my own vegetables. I don't. You know, I feel like with all the life changes I've made, that's probably not going to ever happen. So I love the thought of going to a farmer's market, and I do occasionally, but I know, you know, even with farmer's markets, you need to be really cautious that fruit or those vegetables truly came from our region. You know, unfortunately, some farmers markets notoriously are shipping in vegetables from other parts of the country or even the world. And so I honestly, I kind of use Whole Foods. They do a lot of the research for me. They do a lot of the work for me. And I know I can almost always get organic. If it is available somewhere on the face of the planet, Whole Foods will have it. And I think making the transition to a plant-based diet initially, I ate whatever I could find as far as vegetables. Now I try very hard to make sure they're organic vegetables. As genetically modified foods become such a huge part of our diet, I think eating anything organic is huge.
So it costs money to be vegan. I mean, you have to.
You know, sadly,
I mean, the
sure.
quality of the vegetables are much greater now than there used to be when you were not.
Yeah, I mean, you can buy a cheeseburger from the dollar menu for $1, or you can buy one apple, and that's terrible. I mean, that's something that's been created by our food industry. There's no reason why someone should not be able to eat a healthy plant-based diet for less or as little money as they can eat awful processed fast food. But that being said, one nice thing that I think was a wonderful lesson for my sister, who eats anything, but when I went to visit in December, I went up to northern Michigan, and there's an amazing co-op in Traverse City, Michigan, and they are like Whole Foods times 10. Oh my gosh, I mean, the amount of options that they offered for me, for vegans, blew my mind. Well, she ended up going to the grocery store. She got me about $50 worth of groceries, so when I got into town, I wasn't hungry and didn't feel like I had to compromise. And then she also went and bought a bunch of junk food, basically for my other siblings, and spent the same exact amount of money. I had meals, I had fresh produce, I had fresh vegetables, and they had things like soda and chips and cookies. Nothing that could sustain them, nothing healthy, and she spent the same exact amount of money. So I think
the amount.
The amount.
You know, the amount of packages of
I would
junk
imagine
food
she had a couple bags worth of the junk
three
food.
apples, and she had
Well,
half pound of a couple of 10 pounds of junk food.
It wasn't that much of a differential, quite frankly. Like I said, I had things like quinoa and soup and fresh produce and peanut butter and organic bread. And I mean, I literally could make meals. She even bought me some of these wonderful organic cookies that were spectacular. Wow, I really didn't need to know they were that good, but I'm glad she found them. So really, yes, I think that what people are having to pay for organic produce is not fair, and it's certainly not right. But I think you can still eat quite well a vegan diet and not feel like you're totally busting your budget.
But you don't have a choice. You have to, if those produce are made by small farmers, they still need to make a living, right? I mean, that's not, that's it costs money. I mean, that's,
sure, oh my gosh, I would never ask anybody to not make a living.
Yeah.
There's certainly.
I understand that. I totally understand that. Yeah.
Excuse me, just a sec. Again, I think the problem is the Monsantos of the world are part of this problem. They're offering these processed foods so cheaply that they're making it look like to buy an apple or an organic piece of produce from a farmer is unreachable. And it really doesn't have to be. I really don't think that it has to be. We have to change our mindset. I mean, quite frankly, even if $50 worth of organic or Whole Foods groceries bought you just a little bit less than $50 worth of processed foods did, what is your health worth? What is your health worth? I mean, how much are you going to end up spending over the next decade or two as you age on medical bills? So that, again, it's kind of shifting our perspective of what matters.
This is an issue that we rich countries have. Now maybe Monsanto may be the lifesaver for Africa or for people that don't have any food because they cannot grow anything.
No, I've heard that argument. I have, and I think that's something that I disagree with completely. From everything that I've read, our planet has 1.5 times enough food to feed every single person on the planet. Monsanto claims that if we didn't have genetically modified food, these people would starve. Well, guess what? We already have 1.5 times what they need. They're still starving. That is not because they don't have the food. It's not because there isn't food, it's because they maybe live in a country where the government will not allow them the food. Maybe the government takes the money for the food and uses it for terrorist activities or to line their own pockets. Monsanto is just, I think, coming up with a big claim that's not accurate. People aren't starving because Monsanto can't make genetically modified food. People are starving for other reasons, and it has nothing to do with the fact that there's not enough food on the planet.
Thank you, Tanya.
You got it. Thank you.
How are the pastas?
I love it. I think the pasta is finally done. Thank you. And thanks for, riling me up a little bit. I think that's a good thing. All right. So finally, I think the pasta is done. So let's drain this and mix up this stuff. Standing here talking is making me so hungry, too. I can't wait to try this. Okay. So this has gotten a little bit solid, which is fine. We're just going to add it to the hot pasta. Let's mix that all in there. And it looks like I didn't grind the cashews quite smooth, but that's fine. So you'll get a little bit of texture from the cashews, which are delicious. So like I said, if you've got the time, you can soak the cashews in advance and just soak them for a couple hours. They get really creamy and wonderful.
So you can see, stir.
Yes, there we go. Okay, so just mix that all in. All right. Yeah, I think that looks absolutely delicious. So you can get your mac and cheese fix. Yeah, doesn't that smell good? Because I have to admit, I used to eat that 25-cent Kraft box macaroni and cheese, and I loved it. And I kind of missed it. So I love that I can make it. And I know exactly what ingredients are in my cheese, my cheesy cheese. Okay. So now we've got the avocado. And so let's actually put this back in here and add just a little bit of water so that gets a little bit thicker. So,
cheese if you are using milk?
well, I can call it anything I want. I just add a Z, cheese. But yeah, I don't know what the rule is on that, quite frankly, but I guess I add the Z, so then it's we're good to go. I can blend that just a little bit more. And I really appreciate everybody's patience on the pasta. Thank you very much for that. Okay. Oh yeah, that looks good. Looks really good. It smells really garlicky. It's gonna be tasty. Okay, let's get that off. Take this out so I don't injure myself. Okay. Oh, doesn't that look delicious? So it's nice and green from the basil. So again, like I mentioned, if you don't want to eat green pasta, you can use something like scallions or onion, whatever flavors you like. Just put it in the food processor and blend it all together, and it just will taste wonderful. And then one nice thing I like to do, and again, you can use whatever vegetables you prefer. I think probably something starchy and sweet like corn or peas would probably taste really nice. I brought some small tomatoes, which I thought would kind of finish this off well. Okay. And you can even sprinkle maybe a little bit more basil on top or a little bit of parsley. Whatever you think. So doesn't that look beautiful and delicious? All right, we'll put that up here. All right, so do you guys have any questions on the sauces or on me being vegan or Monsanto or anything?
About pasta, do you know if there's any fresh vegan pastas?
You know what? Honestly, I don't. I would think that it would be something with a little bit of Googling we could find probably pretty easily. Because, you know, the biggest challenge that I run into is I've been gluten-free now for a couple years, but ultimately I've been doing a little bit of reading and I've found that potentially it's not the gluten that's causing so many gastrointestinal problems with people, but it's the Roundup or the pesticides that's added to the wheat right before it's harvested. And that's been happening now for probably about 2 decades or maybe a little bit more. And just about the same time that gluten intolerance has skyrocketed, this Roundup thing has been happening as well. So I'm guilty as anybody else. I got sucked into the whole gluten-free phenomenon. So I've been eating a lot of gluten-free pasta, which quite frankly is tasty enough. But once it gets cool, it tends to get a little hard. So it's very helpful to have sauces on it that help keep it moist. So I'm going to start trying maybe some organic wheat pasta because that's going to be pesticide-free. And one thing I'd really love to find is the einkorn wheat, which is the last wheat that is not hybridized. So it's really, if you can find that organic, it's probably going to be a best case scenario when it comes to eating wheat. But like I said, locally, I don't know offhand anybody that makes their own pasta, but I will find out. That's a good question. I would really love to find out because pasta is so much better when it's, fresh and freshly made. And again, probably not something I'm going to tackle, but who knows? I'm always up for a challenge. So thank you. Thanks for asking, Marvin. Okay, so that was a little bit of a process for sure as far as getting the water boiling, but thank goodness we finally did. Pasta is good and done. And we made this amazing avocado sauce and my world famous cheese sauce, which I just absolutely adore. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope that you guys will try it. And please feel free to visit my blog. It's napavalleyvegan.com. Be happy to put the recipes on the blog so you can take a look. Primarily what I do on my blog, though, is I visit and review wineries and restaurants locally that offer vegan options or are vegan friendly. So that's the really big thing that's important to me, is I know a lot of locals want to have vegan friendly places to eat, and of course the multitude of people that come into Napa Valley every single year that want to feel like they're welcome and that they have somewhere that they can eat. So please feel free to check out my blog.
So
Yes.
Tanya, did your blog just win an award?
I did just win an award. I can't believe it. I have been blogging for about 5.5 months, so I'm a total novice. But I just heard from FlipKey by TripAdvisor. It's a website that literally gets a couple million hits per month. And they listed me as one of the top 12 bloggers of 2015 here in Napa Valley. So if there's no other reason to look at my blog, there's that. Check it out. So thanks, folks. Thanks for joining me, and we will see you next time. Take care. All right. All right.